Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. It's LeBron versus Steph on opening night. Plus, Luka is back in action. All that next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcasts, this one's always going to be free for you, and we're never going to put it behind a paywall because that's just a jerky thing to do. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 36,000 subscribers to the channel all are hanging out, talking about Luka Doncic getting back on the floor, and of course talking about LeBron James versus Steph Curry on opening night. Because yes, while Luka Doncic is the new star of this team, that is LeBron versus Steph. That the NBA has set up. We'll get to that in just a moment. Do want to let everybody know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. So if you want to go to crypto.com arena, Andy, on October 21st, you can check the Game Time app and you will be there to see Steph versus LeBron. The league doesn't know how many more of these opportunities they'll get. It is still a marquee matchup, even with the torch being passed to Doncic. Not a surprise, I think, that this is where the NBA is going on opening night.
LeBron v. Steph still has a lot of juice in terms of getting eyeballs. As you said, there's only so many of these left. So the league will very understandably, and I think rightly, milk the matchup for as much as they still can, for as long as they still can. And I think also this might be key early enough in the season that for the time being, both guys are likely to be healthy and the teams by definition cannot at least even possibly be underperforming because
they can't be underperforming. And there's no load management on opening night.
But I'm being serious.
No, it's 100%. There's no guarantee that either guy doesn't get hurt during training camp or doesn't do something during the preseason or whatever. But your best odds to guarantee that Steph and LeBron will be healthy. They play 4 times this year is the first one on opening night. If you wait till Christmas, if you wait till Martin Luther King Day, you risk one of the two of those guys, or maybe even both, being out of that game,
or the team. Particularly in the case of the Warriors, because they are an older team, but you could be missing guys, stuff like that. It's the best way to at least get the most spice with Lakers Warriors. And for what it's worth, as much as there may not be much left to milk from LeBron v. Steph, unless we happen to get it in the playoffs, the games themselves, Lakers Warriors, over the last few years have tended to be really good games.
Yeah,
we've had some of the best regular season games of the last 2 or 3 years between these two squads. So in that sense, it's a pretty predictable but sensible opening night matchup.
Yeah, very, very smart on the part of the NBA. And there are a lot of people, and we'll get to this in a second, because the Christmas Day game, which again is at crypto.com arena, another statement as to where sort of the NBA thinks the Lakers are once again. Not making the Lakers are always going to play on Christmas, but they're going to make them travel. They're not going to make them go to New York. They're not going to, they're slotting a game in Los Angeles for either presumably that, what is the 3 o'clock Eastern time, or the later game. I think that'll probably be the primetime game at 3 or whatever it is out here.
They're the third game of the slate. However you want to, I don't know the exact times, but it's Cleveland at New York, San Antonio at Oklahoma, then Houston at Lakers, Dallas at Warriors, Minnesota at Denver.
Right. And so, I think there are some people who are curious or think the NBA might have missed an opportunity in not scheduling Lakers versus Mavs in that time slot. I get it. The flip side is LeBron versus KD, and what is going to be a matchup of arguably the consensus number 2 seed in the Western Conference versus Luka and the Lakers on Christmas. It's hard to go wrong with that one. I think, though, like, I was thinking about this, like, why not the Mavs? It's been done. Like, by that point, they'll have played a couple times. But also, too, I do think the idea that the league, it's one thing, like, you can put the Lakers on TV on Christmas almost no matter where they are in the conference. They've got Luka, they've got LeBron. They should be very good. But that's sort of secondary. They're the Lakers. You can put them on TV whenever. That's not the same with the Mavericks. And I think you look at Dallas, Kyrie Irving will not be back on the floor by Christmas. You never quite know with Anthony Davis. You don't exactly know what that team is going to be. There's some people who think they're going to be pretty good even without Kyrie. Others, I know you're a little bit more skeptical. I think the league is just going with a more sure thing, LeBron and Luka versus, KD and the up and coming Houston Rockets. That's a high floor game. Even if you think higher ceiling for Dallas Lakers, I don't know about that, but it's a lower floor for sure.
Well, I think from a pure basketball perspective, the odds of Lakers Rockets being a better game, I think, is higher than the odds of Lakers Mavs. We're going to see, according to Mark Stein, in the NBA Cup, formerly known as the IST, the first match, the artist
still called to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's like, the naming rights with the Coliseum. As far as I'm concerned, USC plays in the Coliseum. I don't care what you call it. But according to Mark Stein, the opening game of the NBA Cup / IST for the Lakers bracket, that's going to be Lakers Mavs. That's going to be a primetime game. And whatever we as fans, we as media, however we may feel about the NBA Cup, the players are taking it seriously. Like, the players have thus far treated the games like they matter, if for no other reason than they actually do, regardless of the NBA Cup, because the regular season games, which I actually think is one of the genius elements of the NBA Cup, even if players don't give a bleep about winning the NBA Cup, or even if they're not motivated by the $500,000, they care about the regular season. So in that sense,
any question,
you're going to get good games.
And it's it's funny because, like, from a Lakers perspective, like, I 100%, you want them to win those games because it's the Western Conference. They matter, to say the very least. I just don't want to play in the final. I don't want to play in the extra game. Like, if they could somehow figure out a way to win all of their NBA Cups and win their group and simply decline to play in the final, like, that to me is the ultimate outcome. As much as I know a lot of people, including our friend Harrison Fagan at Silver Screen and Roll, would prefer that they raise another banner. It is the other thing that really stuck out to me, Andy. You would barely know that there's an Eastern Conference based on the opening night games and the Christmas Day games.
No, there barely is an Eastern Conference. So good call.
Well, opening night is 2 Western Conference teams. I'm sorry, 2 Western Conference games, and Christmas 4 of the 5?
Yep.
Do feature Western Conference teams.
But if you want to take the glass half full look at the Eastern Conference, for many, many years, the Knicks had been included in this thing every single year for no other reason than being the Knicks. They're at least good now. Like, Cleveland versus New York.
Well, that's a good game.
Right. That's actually, it's a good, legitimate, real NBA basketball game, as opposed to in the not so distant past when the Knicks were simply hosting at the Garden because they happened to play at the Garden. Like, that was the only reason the Knicks were being included. So in that sense, at least the Eastern Conference game is a legitimate game, even if the conference is fraudulent.
Well, what's funny to me is, like, you can find some decent games in the Eastern Conference. Like, Atlanta, for example, low key has had a great offseason. They're, I think, a really intriguing team with a lot of fun players and all that kind of stuff. Detroit is a fun up and coming young team. Orlando, so it's just that like nobody wants to watch them. Those are not bankable Christmas teams. The Orlando Magic and Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. They deserve maybe to be watched on high profile games, but they ain't there yet in terms of attracting the casuals on a Christmas day.
It's not that there's no good teams in the East, because there are, but the drop off between the good teams and the bad teams is staggering.
It's that, and not to step on you, sorry, but like it's that and the fact that the good teams are super unreliable. Like, I don't know if anybody, like nobody's like really firm on Milwaukee. They've got Giannis, but that team could be, very, very mid, not, and, without a really good dominant Milwaukee team. You're not putting that on Christmas. And like the Sixers with Joel Embiid are not something that you can bank on. The Celtics are injured. It's like it's like the most interesting, fun teams, I think. Even Indiana without Halliburton, it's right. Kind of a wait and see.
Yeah, I mean,
the most interesting and fun teams to me are Orlando, Detroit, and Atlanta.
But they don't have the name
recognition. They're not getting Christmas slots.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, it's a shame because the Pistons actually are, in particular, I think, a really fun team to watch. Orlando, I think, is just a really interestingly constructed team.
Yeah,
but they don't have the name recognition value.
All right, let's talk about Luka Doncic, Andy. He was back on the floor Friday, floor Friday for Slovenia against Germany as they get ready for Eurobasket play. We'll tell you how he looked literally and figuratively next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. We have all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go online, only because you lose your spot for this show. You have some type of computer glitch or whatever you've been dying to see. Now you're at the back of the line and you're going to miss out this concert. And live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with the killer last-minute deals. With Game Time, the price that you see is the price that you pay. No hidden fees. The Game Time guarantee also has your back with a cancellation protection, plus much, much more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right. So one of the things that I thought was interesting, we did a show, was it Thursday or Friday? We talked about the rankings across the NBA. Like
that was for Friday.
Friday's show. The Locked On Network is ranking our channel. The NBA channel is ranking the top 100 players across the NBA. You took some flack because you put Luka behind Anthony Edwards. I put him in front there, but like still took a little flack because I think I had him at fourth instead of third or second.
We both had him at fourth, but okay. I made it very clear and I've stuck to it. I will address specific questions about my ranking process or whatever. I'm not going to argue with you. If you're looking to argue about the number, I'm not doing it.
I have it tiered maybe just a little different than you. I think Jokic is his own tier. I think the next tier basically is Luka, Shea, and Giannis in any particular order you want to put him in. I think you're putting Ant in that group. It doesn't really matter.
We weren't allowed to do tiers, so it comes out as numbers, man. You can explain this away all you want, Brian. It's a waste of your own time. If people are going to be pissed, they're going to be pissed.
No, I understand that. I'm just sort of clarifying how I look at these things.
They don't.
But They might not.
The people who will be mad about this,
The
don't.
people who are mad don't care. I agree with you. They don't listen to
care.
words. They're not interested in words.
They're interested in the number in front of Luka. That's it.
So one of the things though that was common in the complaints of the Luka advocates was like, last year he wasn't in great shape because he was hurt and all these other things. We're not picking on him. It's just he never had a chance to really get healthy. You're not factoring in that he's skinny Luka now and he's in great shape and all that kind of stuff. Hold on to that for a second, because I think many people are missing the real value of Luka's transformation. So we'll get to that in a second. But let's talk about how he played. Played 24 minutes against Germany, had 19 points, five assists, 3 rebounds, got a technical foul. So in that sense, he's in midseason form. Hasn't played an organized game with referees and whistles and uniforms and stuff since the Lakers were eliminated. That was his first real 5-on-5 game. I thought overall, again, metaphorically and literally, he looked pretty good, for a guy who hasn't played a lot of basketball of late. And Germany's got some legit guys on that squad.
I thought he looked good for a guy who had or had not been playing basketball of late. I thought full disclosure, did not get to watch the whole game.
I've watched a bunch of highlight videos.
Right. I was doing radio for 710 ESPN and my show was live during Luka's game. But I did see some highlights. I thought he looked good in what I saw. He looked lively out there. He did not look like somebody who was getting his timing back, even if I think he was 9 of 22 from the field. Like, it wasn't the most efficient game he's ever had, but he didn't look like somebody struggling to get his feel out there. He definitely had high energy. He got into it with former Laker Isak Bonga from Germany. So a little bit of Laker on former Laker crime. And the physical piece of this, he looks good. At this point, we've seen enough of Luka between the magazine spread and the press conference and now this game to say, there's no way around this. He looks like somebody with a transformed body. And I know that there are a lot of Laker fans who feel like this narrative has been overblown and people are focusing on it too much. And this becomes like backhanded praise of Luka because it's also an acknowledgement of the past conditioning issues that I know a lot of Luka fans feel like isn't fair to him. And you can, whatever you think about how much of an issue this was or was not for Luka, I think in a lot of ways you're missing the larger point. You can still think Luka was awesome before and acknowledge this will be helpful for him. This will put less stress on his body. This does not guarantee he won't miss games, but I think it ups the odds that he'll be able to stay out there more. And either way, what this will do, and I think this will be great for the really big Luka fans, you will no longer at least hear the criticism of it. If Luka gets hurt, it's not going to be because he doesn't take X seriously. It's simply going to be because he got hurt. So if nothing else, him transforming himself gets rid of that thing that you're sick of hearing about.
I think that's definitely true. And I think he will move a little bit better. I think he'll look, I think a little more like he did 2 years ago, not based on weight, but just based on health and things like that. So if he gets through Eurobasket, gets through training camp, he's going to look like he did a couple of years ago because he's going to be healthier and stronger going into the season. I don't necessarily think, again, to tie it back to the rankings or the tiers or things like that, does that make Luka 20% better than he was? No, I think it makes him closer to the Luka that he has been traditionally, who I think is probably this, when they acquired him, we kept calling him at worst a top 5 player, generally considered to be top 3. And I think the point is he wasn't that last year. So I think he returns to that place. And you were kind of alluding to it. The value here isn't Luka is going to be way better than he's ever been next year because he's so fit. it will help him. I really believe that. I think you'll see most of the difference in the like first step defensively and just a little bit quicker with, you know, the little more explosive, just a little bit better on contact, whatever it might be. Where I think this has value is it's going to raise the odds that you get more seasons like this.
I agree.
More seasons of Luka at his peak. And you don't risk having Luka at 29, 30, or 31 fall off a cliff because he never took care of himself, kind of like Shaq did. Like Shaq kind of fell off pretty. He still was effective because he was Shaq, but the gap between prime Shaq wasn't a thing as long as it could have been. I think that's something that most people would agree on. Probably Shaq, if you really pinned him down, which is hard to do because he's very big. But like this transformation, if he does it, is going to make Luka look like this, hopefully at 33, 34, 35 years old or something like that. That's the value for Luka and the Lakers in this. That second contract that he signs with LA has a much better chance of really paying off and being a great deal for the Lakers. It's not just about like, is he 10% better this year?
I mean, I think we shouldn't be overthinking this. There is no downside to a superstar professional athlete getting his body in better shape. There's no downside to this. Like you're overthinking it if you're trying to come up with ways that, you know, I've heard people say, oh, well, is he going to lose strength? Like, you know, what happens if he loses a bit of that mass that was, you know, that was part of his game? He was able to overpower people. He's still going to be really strong. There's only going to be things added from it. My final thing also, just in terms of the 10% better, 20% better, how does it fit into the rankings? I consider putting Luka at fourth an acknowledgement that he's really effing good. You, the viewer, the listener, may not, and that's fine. Again, I'm not here to argue. I just want you to understand how I think of it. I think of it as one hell of a compliment. You don't have to. Just understand how I think about it.
Yeah,
I think I speak for Brian as well.
Yeah, I used to have arguments with people like, you disrespect, like, is Kobe the 7th best player, the 8th best player, or the 11th? But like, definitionally speaking, if I say somebody is the 8th best player in the history of the league,
yeah, exactly.
You simply that cannot be disrespectful. It just can't, definitionally.
And so, yeah, we live in this world.
We do. Do the Lakers have a Dalton Knecht problem? I think they do, and some interesting evidence of that next. So I'll note this by saying that I didn't actually listen to their show together, and I am not putting, I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth about anything anybody said about Dalton or didn't say. But our friends, Tim _NBA, Cranjus McBasketball, along with Jovan Buha, they did a show where they talked about, like, kind of broke down what they thought the rotation would look like from a minutes standpoint. And then they aggregated, they talked about where their differences were and this and that and whatever. What I thought was interesting about it was obviously they all had Ayton, James, Smart, Reeves, Doncic as the starting five. That's what we think it's going to be. The bench.
Well, it's what we think it should be. We're not predicting yet it will be.
That's true. Although I do think it will be. The bench minutes they had projected going to regular rotation minutes. Rui getting the bulk of it. Then Laravia, Vincent, Vanderbilt, and Hayes as the backup five. What was interesting about that to me, Andy, is the name that does not appear on it, which is Dalton Knecht, last year's first-round pick, a player for whom the Lakers had, hopefully still have, high hopes. So Cranjus posted on Twitter an interesting stat about Dalton. Dalton Knecht's offensive role was as an off-screen shooter in 10 of the first 23 games he played, then in just 2 of the final 57 games he played. This is the real heart of it. LA really went away from him as that JJ Redick, Kyle Korver type as the year progressed, and he still couldn't make the reads. That was the part that really got my attention, Andy, what he said, and he still couldn't make the reads. He defensively, we've seen sort of a lot of the things, same problems. Here's another one. He had a decent bit of opportunity in those off-ball screening scoring possessions, but really struggled. A lot of it was mental. His reads pre-catch and post-catch weren't as sharp, and he put himself in a lot of tough positions with the shots he took. Dalton Knecht is described by many people, including himself, Andy, as a hooper. He just gets out there and hoops, which implies one of two things. Often people talk about it as a guy who just lives, breathes, and whatever basketball, like Dalton has no other interests other than basketball. He's a hooper. It can also mean a guy who sort of just instinctively plays the game and the nuances of what is required in an NBA level in terms of understanding, in terms of basketball IQ and all that kind of stuff, may not be as strong of a focus. And what I am getting concerned about,
I don't think for what it's worth, I don't think the latter definition you threw out is how most people talk about being.
I don't necessarily think it's how most people talk about it, but I think it is a way that it can be talked about. And what I'm concerned about with Dalton is that he is a low basketball IQ player. And that ultimately that is going to be the thing that keeps him. When you see guys talking about not making the reads, like they have to stop using certain sets because he's not able to make the correct reads, that he doesn't pre-catch, post-catch, do these things. And we all know defensively, we've seen it. We've seen the footage of JJ Redick yelling at him like, dude, this is your play. Essentially pull your head out of your rear.
Yeah. I mean, continue. I think there's been too much focus on that one play. Like that is people often treat that play like it happened every single game. And there's no evidence that it happened every single game. That's all.
Well, there is potentially evidence that not literally that mistake, but meant that where the mental side of things, the read and react side of things, which is incredibly difficult. We talk about it a lot defensively, like sure. Defense in the NBA is you have to be able to read stuff. And if you are a 0.2 of a second late with your reads, oftentimes you're dead. And I am not trying to make this out to be an easy thing. And I'm not even, and it really has nothing to do with Dalton's innate human intelligence. I've never met the guy. I don't, it doesn't really matter. He doesn't need to be able to do algebra. He needs to be able to read defenses or read offenses, all that stuff. I am starting to wonder if what is really going to hold him back more than anything is it just is not a high IQ basketball player. And that there's some mounting evidence, and that two guys have, the preseason rotation, and it does not include him. I don't think it's a great sign, especially coming off a terrible summer.
I mean, it's not a great sign, but I think it is worth noting, first of all, that they have two guys penciled in for rotation minutes that JJ clearly doesn't trust either. So the idea that Jackson Hayes or Jared Vanderbilt are locks to keep those minutes, I think that could be getting ahead of yourself too.
Right, but I will say this: if they're going to play a backup center, it's not going to be Dalton Knecht.
I understand that, but we haven't always seen evidence that they're going to regularly play
small, sure,
a backup center. And we saw in the playoffs that JJ was willing to forego a backup center. He was willing to forego his entire bench at times. And the thing that I would say in terms of those plays being abandoned for Dalton without trying to take up for the things that clearly, or push aside the things that clearly need to be fixed. Like Dalton is a flawed player, and there are several parts of his game that need to improve. We have also seen over the course of JJ's first season with the Lakers, impatience has sometimes been a theme. And I think a willingness to abandon stuff, and as opposed to writing out certain things, not in a way that it was always destructive for the Lakers. And there have been times, to be fair to JJ, where he's been patient with certain things, but he's also
been very flexible.
He's been flexible.
The playoffs, he was not. The playoffs,
right.
he
but I think in the regular season too, there were times where I think he got in. I'm not saying inflexible. I think impatient. There's a difference, to me at least. I think there's a difference between impatience and inflexible. Regardless, though, I'm not ready to give up on Dalton yet, just because it's one rookie year that was, for him personally, very weird. Like, he had a very weird, no template thing for all intents and purposes happen. There are very few comps for the rescinded trade that he experienced, and it very clearly messed with him. He also dealt with a lot of roster the roster changed 2 or 3 times, which, without having heard the entirety of Kranjic's and Jovan's discussion, I don't know how much they acknowledged at least the idea that some of these plays could have changed because the composition of the roster changed at times. Some of what they were looking to do with Dalton. I look back at, say, Andrew Bynum, his first couple of years in the league, the second season, even when the regular season, he averaged like 22 minutes a game. It went down to 11 in the playoffs. And Kobe was clearly unconvinced with the potential of Andrew Bynum because he wanted his ass shipped out for Jason Kidd.
No question.
Now, Bynum, I think, had a much more intuitive feel for the game than Dalton. Like, I think Bynum's inherent basketball IQ, you could even see it as a rookie.
And he was also 11 when he entered the league, whereas Dalton came in at 24.
Sure. I get all of that. I'm just saying guys sometimes need a little bit longer. I think everything you're talking about with Dalton, I'm not disagreeing in terms of the issues and the things that need to get fixed. I'm not disagreeing with any of it. I'm not even disagreeing with your assessment of the basketball IQ. I'm just not ready to declare it unsolvable yet.
I'm not writing him off, but I will say this. This is something that occurred to me over the weekend when I saw this from Tim. And again, I didn't hear the conversation. And no question, this is reinforcing stuff I already was very worried about. Much of which I've been talking about all summer. Like, I'm not sure how intelligent a player he is. But the Lakers didn't work him out, as far as I know. Like, I don't think they interviewed him. I don't think they got him into the building. I don't
remember off the top of my head.
They might have talked. Maybe they interviewed him at the combine. I know, but like I do not believe they worked him out, because I don't think anybody expected him to be available.
Nobody.
When they took him.
No, forget anybody. Nobody expected him to be available.
So, I mean, and obviously people in the chat, whoever it is, I mean, I looked it up. I didn't see it, but like, it is possible I am wrong here. But I don't think they worked him out. And when you don't work out guys, you don't have as good of a feel. You don't sit down with them. You don't do those interviews. And so it is possible that this is something that the Lakers actually didn't pick up on, because they never talked to the guy. And it's not even a criticism when somebody falls into your lap, and the overwhelming consensus when they took him was, dude, like, fell into their laps, you take him. I'm not criticizing the pick, but I'm saying is this may be one of these wrinkles that is that the luck, in air quotes, of him falling, if this turns out to be a fatal flaw, or such something, if not fatal, but like, puts a ceiling on where he can be. This might have been one of those things that's like, the downside of it. Like Westwood points out in the chat, 2.5 years ago, Dalton was a 6'1" nobody to junior college. He's older, but not very experienced playing high level basketball. Didn't play high level AAU and stuff like that. And that's both an argument for him being able to grow into it, and it's also an argument against it. I think you can.
He is continually, for the course of his basketball career, he has continually improved, and he's continually gone to higher levels and eventually conquered them.
But always, like when he played at Tennessee, he was the man at Tennessee.
Sure.
He was the focus of it.
Sure.
I'm assuming Northern Colorado or whatever. I think that's where he was before. He was the focus of their offense.
Absolutely.
And so he's got to be able to adjust into the role. And nobody thought he was a particularly great defender at Tennessee. We got some people who would vouch for him a little bit, but better than advertised as, but not good. Like it is a concern. It's a concern that I have. So we'll see. I mean, the Lakers drafted him with the idea of he's basically ready to go as a mature player, as an older player, that he's going to require less development and less seasoning.
I think that's part of it. I'm not sure about that piece of it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I'm not sure you're correct. I'm not sure that they saw him as seasoned and done because he was 24. It's not like he stayed an extra year at the same school. He kept going to different schools. So I would not make that assumption.
I want to let's carry this through tomorrow, because I'm seeing some really interesting comments and stuff that's like worth talking about, in terms of like what changes for a player when they go from college to the pros. It's actually relevant to some of the stuff with Bronny that we actually have not really had a chance to talk about. Make for a good conversation tomorrow. Locked on Lakers on YouTube, so we can go hang out after, talk to each other, talk to us, leave us questions, leave us comments, subscribe there, subscribe on Apple and on Spotify. We'll see everybody tomorrow.